Martin sat stiffly in a plush booth at the club. Music thumped in his chest, and lights blinked in every color. His 34th birthday was just around the corner. Across the room, a group of women were laughing, their energy impossible to ignore. One of his friends nudged him and pointed. "See her? The one in the shiny red dress? Toast her. Come on, we dare you." Martin's palms were sweaty. He had more money than he knew what to do with, a billionaire, but he kept it quiet. He dressed simple, talked less, and avoided the spotlight. Especially around women. Especially stunning ones like the lady in red. His throat tightened. "Come on, Martin," Ben shouted over the music. "You're turning 34. Time to find someone already. You don't want to grow old alone." His friends meant well, even if they pushed too hard. With a shaky breath, Martin grabbed his glass and stood. His legs weren't fully on board with the plan. Still, he walked across the club, one step at a time, toward the table full of women. His heart was pounding so loud, he could barely hear the music anymore. She saw him coming. Everybody did. The woman in red. Confident. Poised. The kind of woman who looked like she belonged on a magazine cover. Hi," Martin mumbled, lifting his glass a little. "My friends dared me to toast the lady in the red dress." Her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. Her friends giggled behind their glasses. Martin's face flushed with heat. He wanted to disappear. But instead of brushing him off, she talked to him. Not for long, and it was awkward at best, but by the end of it, they exchanged numbers. He returned to his table in a daze. "She gave me her number? Really?" They started texting. Martin tried not to get too excited. Tiana texted back, but not often. Her replies were short. Still, he held on to hope. Tiana was different from him. Very different. Her social media showed a life of designer brands, 5-star dinners, and trips to places Martin had never even thought about visiting. She was polished, classy, expensive. Martin liked her. A lot. He also feared she'd lose interest. He worried he wasn't exciting or fancy enough. So he did what he knew. He gave. Expensive gifts, weekend getaways, luxury handbags. He didn't do it to impress her. He just didn't want her to go. Months passed. The more time he spent with her, the more he knew he wanted something serious. Marriage serious. So he took his friends ring shopping. Ben picked out a diamond the size of a small rock. "This is it," he said. "This screams Tiana. Big, bold, rich. Just like her lifestyle. You can afford it. Go big or go home." Martin stared at the ring, feeling pressure rising in his chest. What if she said no anyway? What if everything he gave wasn't enough? Still, he bought the ring, holding on to the hope that the size of it might tip the scale in his favor. The engagement party was flawless. Lights, music, laughter. Tiana wore the ring like it was made just for her, hand out, showing it to everyone in sight. One of her friends gasped. "That ring. Tiana, wow." "You're blessed, girl," another one said, touching her arm. "A billionaire fiancé who worships the ground you walk on," someone added. "That's the dream." "You've won, Tiana," one of them said, staring at her in awe. "Your life is set." Martin stood nearby, watching. Everyone admired her. She sparkled under the attention, just like the ring. She'd said yes, and he was glad. He really was. Martin parked his expensive but simple car outside Tiana's family home. He took a deep breath, trying to ignore the slight nervousness in his stomach. Tiana squeezed his hand, her smile bright but maybe a little tight. Beside him, his parents stepped out. His mother, a well-known politician used to elegant events, adjusted her tailored jacket, her expression instantly guarded. His father, a quietly respected businessman, simply observed, his face calm but watchful. As they approached the door, a strong smell of cigarette smoke drifted out. Tiana opened it, leading them into a noisy, crowded parlor. The air was hazy. Loud music played from a phone. Several young women, dressed in revealing shorts and tiny tops, lounged on mismatched furniture, scrolling phones or chatting loudly. Empty soda cans and snack bags littered a coffee table. "Mom, Stepdad, Martin and his parents are here," Tiana called out, her voice straining to be heard over the din. Tiana's mother emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She was a large woman with bright makeup and even brighter clothes. Lots of gold jewelry jingled as she moved. "Oh, welcome, welcome," she boomed, her voice easily overpowering the music. She didn't lower her volume. "Come in, make yourselves comfy. Ignore the girls, they're just visiting." She waved vaguely at the half-dressed young women, who barely glanced up. Martin's mother barely concealed a look of disgust as she carefully chose a seat, avoiding a suspicious stain on the armrest. Martin's father nodded politely, his eyes taking in the room's chaotic details. "Mom, this is Martin," Tiana said quickly. "And these are his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Davies." "Davies? Nice name," Tiana's mother declared, plopping down opposite them. "I'm Brenda. This is my husband, Stan." A thin man with a tired expression nodded silently from the doorway. Brenda leaned forward, her focus entirely on Martin. "So, you're the billionaire. My Tiana told me all about you. Such a lucky girl. You better take real good care of her, you hear me? My daughter. She's luxury. Top shelf. Only the best will do for our Tiana. Expensive tastes, just like her mama." She laughed, a loud, sharp sound. "Clothes, bags, trips, she deserves it all. You are lucky to have her attention, young man." "Very lucky indeed." Martin forced a smile, feeling awkward under her intense gaze. "It's nice to meet you, Brenda. Stan." He saw his own mother's lips press into a thin line of disapproval. His father remained silent, his calm expression now looking more like deep concern. Tiana shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, please." "Please what? I'm just telling the truth," Brenda boomed. "Your young man needs to know what a prize he's getting. Our Tiana is a star. Famous on the phone. Makes good money too, you know, very hard-working." The visit felt long and uncomfortable. Brenda dominated the conversation, talking loudly about money, expensive things Tiana needed, and how set Tiana would be. Stan mostly smoked silently by the window. The girls in the parlor giggled at their phones. Martin's parents spoke very little. His mother looked like she was sitting on pins and needles, her politician's poise strained. His father's watchful eyes missed nothing. Later, driving away in stunned silence, Martin's mother finally spoke, her voice tight. "Martin, that family, that environment, it's deeply concerning. Brenda's values, they are not our values. They seem entirely focused on material gain." His father added quietly, "Son, what we saw today, it raises serious questions. About Tiana's background, her upbringing, her mother's influence. We urge you to rethink this very carefully." Martin felt defensive. He thought of Tiana's successful social media career, her glamorous photos, her hard work building her brand. "Mom, Dad," he insisted, "Tiana isn't her mother. She's worked hard for what she has. Family background doesn't determine who a person is. She's amazing. She makes me happy. That's what matters." He pushed aside the uneasy feeling Brenda's loud demands had planted, and the chaotic, smoky scene. He loved Tiana. He believed in her. He chose to ignore the worried silence that settled over his parents for the rest of the drive home. He didn't know the painful secret Tiana carried, the one deeply tangled in the messy world he'd just witnessed, the one that could change everything. The wedding preparations were a whirlwind of luxury. Tiana's dress, a blinding cascade of imported lace and crystals, cost more than most cars. Invitations, engraved on thick pearl paper, had been sent to CEOs, celebrities, and politicians. Martin, wanting only her happiness, approved every extravagant detail: a live orchestra, a mountain of rare orchids, a fireworks finale. The city buzzed about the billionaire's wedding. Yet, amidst the frenzy, Tiana was a ghost in glitter. During her final dress fitting, as her friends squealed over the train, Tiana stared blankly at her reflection. Her mother's furious words echoed, sharp as knives. "This marriage won't stop your service. You think a ring changes what you are? Keep paying me, or I swear I'll stand up in that church and ruin everything. Tell everyone who you really are." The secret, the dangerous, shameful work she'd been forced into to fund her mother's demands and her own desperate climb out of poverty, felt like a stone crushing her chest. She loved Martin, his quiet kindness a balm she'd never known. The thought of hurting him made her physically ill. But confessing? No man, especially not a billionaire, would accept her past. Trapped and terrified, she plastered on a smile while her mind screamed to run. The bridal shower that night was loud champagne and flashing phones. Her friends toasted the future Mrs. Billionaire and Queen Tiana. They laughed, danced, shoved expensive gifts at her. Tiana moved through it like an actress in a play she hated, her laughter brittle, her eyes distant. She felt completely alone. Later, exhausted and emotionally raw, Tiana returned to her opulent hotel suite with her bridal party. The girls finally left, leaving her in silence. She felt numb. Martin, overflowing with love and excitement, couldn't sleep. He decided to surprise his princess. He grabbed a bottle of rare, chilled champagne and a bouquet of her favorite white roses. He pictured her sleepy smile, her hug. His heart felt full. He approached her suite door quietly, a happy smile on his face. Then he froze. A sound. Not talking. A low, rhythmic moaning came from her room. His blood turned to ice. Confused panic seized him. No. Wrong room. He checked the number on his keycard again. 1802. He stared at the door plaque. 1802. The sounds grew louder, unmistakable. Tears welled in Martin's eyes, blurring the numbers. He stood paralyzed, the cold bottle sweating in his hand, the roses suddenly feeling like lead. Suddenly, the door handle clicked. Martin stumbled back. The door opened. A man stood there, hastily buttoning a hotel receptionist uniform shirt, his face flushed and sweaty, eyes wide with shock. "Yes, sir, Mr. Martin." The man stammered. Martin pushed past him into the suite. The scene was a brutal punch. Tiana sat bolt upright in the massive bed, tangled in the expensive duvet, her face a mask of pure terror and guilt. Her makeup was smudged. The air smelled thickly of sweat and perfume. The evidence was overwhelming. Martin didn't yell. He didn't speak. He just stared, shaking violently from head to toe. This was the woman he worshipped. The woman he'd showered with diamonds, defended to his parents, planned a future with. The woman he'd respected so deeply he vowed to wait for their wedding night. And here she was, moments after her bridal shower, wrapped in a hotel duvet with another man, an employee, in their wedding suite. The love in his heart curdled into a seething mass of anger, hatred, and utter disgust. He turned and walked out without a word, leaving the champagne and roses discarded in the plush hallway carpet. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't think. Walking blindly through the luxurious hotel, one thought pounded in his skull, drowning out everything else. She's just a cheap girl in expensive clothes. And I was the biggest fool of all for not seeing it. The shame was almost worse than the pain. His mother would laugh. His father's quiet disappointment would cut deep. How could he have been so blind? The weight of his own trust, broken and twisted, crushed him. Tiana watched Martin carefully over breakfast, her fork pushing uneasily at the expensive fruit platter. 5 days until the wedding. Since that awful night in the hotel, a cold dread had settled in her stomach. Did he hear? Did he see the man leaving? Martin's face was unreadable as he scanned the financial news on his tablet. He hadn't mentioned it. He hadn't shouted. He hadn't cancelled anything. His calmness terrified her more than anger would have. Martin felt her gaze like a physical touch. He kept his eyes on the screen, forcing his breathing to stay even. Inside, a storm raged. Every time Tiana spoke, the sound of her voice, that same soft, lilting tone, twisted into the sharp, breathless moans he'd heard through the hotel door. The memory was a fresh wound, ripped open constantly. He saw the receptionist's sweaty face, the guilty shock in Tiana's eyes as she huddled in the duvet. The phantom scent of cheap hotel soap and sweat seemed to cling to him. He hadn't ended the wedding. Not yet. Ending it now felt like letting her win, letting her walk away without consequence after shattering him. The pain was immense, a constant, heavy ache in his chest that made it hard to breathe sometimes. When they were out together, smiling for photographers or choosing cake designs, Martin felt like an actor playing a role. He'd touch her hand, helping her into the car, and his skin would crawl, remembering that same hand clutching the duvet. He'd hear her laugh with her friends, and the sound would morph into those gasping cries meant for another man. But beneath the agony, a colder, harder resolve had formed. Martin, the shy billionaire who hated games, was now the master of this one. He was in charge. Canceling the wedding quietly? That was too easy for her. Too kind. He had a bigger plan, a more devastating finale. He would let the wedding happen. He would let her stand there, draped in obscene luxury he'd paid for, believing she'd won the ultimate prize. He would let her feel safe, secure, victorious. And then, when she was at her most exposed, surrounded by everyone who mattered, he would pull the rug out with such force she'd never recover. She played with hearts. She thought his money was the only thing of value? He would show her the cost of her betrayal. He would ensure Tiana never forgot the pain she caused, and she would never ever toy with someone's trust like this again. The wedding wasn't cancelled. It was the stage being set for her ultimate downfall. He hid it all, the heartbreak, the disgust, the meticulously crafted revenge, behind a mask of quiet, billionaire calm. Only the slight tightening of his jaw when she laughed too loudly hinted at the volcano within. Tiana stood before the mirror, her wedding dress, a masterpiece of ivory silk and hand-sewn crystals, glistening under the harsh lights. But her reflection showed tears cutting through her carefully applied makeup. Her mother, Brenda, bustling nearby adjusting the train, froze. "What's wrong with you? Stop crying. You'll ruin your face." Tiana's voice was a broken whisper. "Mom, please. I can't do this. Don't make me go out there." Brenda's eyes hardened. She gripped Tiana's shoulders, her voice a venomous hiss. "You will walk down that aisle, smile, and marry him. Martin will never find out about your past. Do as I say, or I swear I'll ruin you myself." Tiana closed her eyes. She'd always known her mother cared only about money and status, never her. Now, trapped between Brenda's greed and her own shame, she thought of Martin, kind, patient, hopelessly in love with a lie. "He deserves better than me. I'm just a mess." As the church doors opened, the guests gasped. Tiana was ethereal, a vision in white, bouquet trembling in her hands. The crowd erupted in cheers and camera flashes. But beneath the veil, Tiana's smile was fragile, her eyes hollow. Every step down the aisle felt like walking on glass. Brenda beamed in the front row, already whispering to a friend about the billionaire daughter-in-law. At the altar, Martin waited. Handsome in his tuxedo, his expression unreadable. When Tiana's turn came to vow, her voice shook. I promise to love you, and honor you." Her words felt like ash in her mouth. Then Martin spoke. His vow was clear, loud, but icy. "I promise to always remember what you've given me, and to hold you accountable for every promise made today." A strange pause followed. To the guests, it sounded solemn. To Tiana, it felt like a threat. After the ceremony, paparazzi swarmed. Blogs blasted photos. Billionaire Martin weds influencer Queen Tiana. Brenda Davies, mother of the bride, steals the show. Brenda danced wildly at the reception, champagne in hand, bragging to her friends while Tiana sat frozen beside Martin, forcing smiles. Later that night, Martin finally broke. In his private study, his best friend David, who'd quietly disapproved of Tiana for months, found him staring blankly at the wedding ring. "Martin, enough," David said gently. "I saw your face today. That vow. This isn't justice. It's destroying you." Martin's composure cracked. He confessed everything: the hotel receptionist, the moans, the duvet, the secret he'd carried like a tumor. "I wanted her humiliated. I wanted the world to see her for what she is." David gripped his shoulder. "Listen to me. End this marriage. Now. Not for revenge. For your sanity. Every day with her is poison. You think you're in control? You're bleeding out slowly." Martin sank into a chair, the weight of his pain crashing down. The game he'd orchestrated suddenly felt empty. David was right. This wasn't strength. It was slow suicide. As Brenda's laughter echoed from the ballroom, Martin finally whispered, "How do I end it without letting her win?" David met his eyes. "You win by walking away. Let her explain the divorce to her mother and the world." The wedding happened, but the marriage was a silent tomb. Martin moved Tiana into his mansion, yet they lived like ghosts haunting separate wings. They slept in different rooms, ate meals at opposite ends of the long table, and moved through the vast, cold house without touching or speaking. The warmth of their early days was replaced by a chilling emptiness. When Tiana, desperate and confused, tried to ask, "Martin, what changed? Please talk to me," he wouldn't meet her eyes. He'd turn away sharply, avoiding her like a bad memory, his silence louder than any shout. Tiana, drowning in guilt and loneliness, started sneaking out at night, seeking cheap thrills or temporary escapes. She'd creep back hours later, hoping Martin was asleep. He never confronted her. But he knew. He watched the green-tinged footage from hidden security cameras, her slipping out the side door, returning disheveled. Some days, consumed by bitter anger, he'd even follow her. He saw her enter cheap motels with strangers, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. He'd given her a second chance after the hotel betrayal, a chance she begged for, and she was still throwing it away. His best friend David, witnessing Martin's torment, pleaded, "Martin, let her go. She's clearly not remorseful. She belongs to the streets, not your life. This is destroying you." Alone in her luxurious prison, Tiana cried herself to sleep most nights. The weight of her betrayal and the pain she saw in Martin's distant eyes were crushing. She hated herself for hurting the one man who'd truly loved her. She resolved to confess everything: the pressure from her mother, the fear, the shame, and beg for his forgiveness or give him the choice to end it. But every time she gathered the courage, whispering, "Martin, I need to tell you something," he'd cut her off with a cold, "Not now, Tiana," or simply walk out of the room. Her words died in her throat, leaving her feeling more trapped than ever. One evening, after 3 years of this frozen hell and 30 years of her mother's poisonous control, Tiana snapped. She walked out of the silent mansion and went straight to Brenda. "I'm done, Mother," Tiana declared, her voice trembling but firm. "Done living this lie. Done being your puppet. Martin loved me, and I destroyed it. I want to try and fix it, even if it's impossible. I'm choosing him." Brenda just laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Fix it? With what? You can't live on air, girl. Find a new rich fool quickly, or you'll regret this forever." Tiana returned home, clinging to a sliver of hope, ready to finally confess everything to Martin, no matter the cost. But the house was colder than ever. Empty. Silent. Martin was gone. Vanished. No note, no call. His closet was half empty, his personal items missing. He'd left no trace. Panic seized her. Where was he? She called his phone, straight to voicemail. Texted, no reply. Emailed, nothing. The reality sank in. He was truly gone. Martin, the gentle billionaire hardened into a guarded, angry man by betrayal and his own punishing silence, hadn't found peace in making Tiana suffer. Watching her through cameras, stewing in resentment, had only poisoned him further. He realized David was right. This wasn't justice, it was slow suicide. He needed to escape the gilded cage of his own making. He left detailed instructions with his fiercely loyal best friend David and his steady, heartbroken mother, the only people he still trusted. He entrusted his vast company to them. Then, he packed a single bag, boarded a plane, and disappeared to a quiet coastal town in another country. Here, he wasn't billionaire Martin. He was just a man renting a small cottage, walking on the beach, trying to remember how to breathe and exist without the weight of betrayal and revenge. Tiana was left utterly alone in the echoing mansion. The bank accounts Martin had provided were frozen. The credit cards declined. The staff, sensing the shift, kept their distance. The house, once a symbol of luxury, felt like a vast, empty tomb. She had no money, no support, no husband, and no idea where he was. Only the crushing weight of her mistakes and her mother's mocking laughter ringing in her ears. The luxury she chased had vanished, leaving behind absolute emptiness. She sat on the cold marble floor of the grand foyer, the silence pressing in, finally facing the desolate consequences of her choices, with nowhere to run and no one to blame but herself. Martin had simply stopped existing in her world, leaving her with nothing but the hollow echo of her own regrets. Martin rented a small, sparse apartment overlooking the river. He spent days trying to silence the angry voices in his head, Tiana's betrayal, the public shame, his own frozen heart. Needing order, he called a cleaning service listed in the local paper. 2 days later, a soft knock. Martin opened the door to find a young woman. She looked painfully thin, shadows under startlingly blue eyes. She clutched a worn cloth bag. "Good day, sir. I am Vicky. Mama Benga sent me. Your cleaner." Her voice was barely a whisper. Martin's frustration flared. "I asked for a male staff. Why send a woman?" He slammed the door, storming to the phone. When Mama Benga answered, she dismissed his complaint. "Men are busy fishing or farming here, sir. Vicky's my best worker. She knows her job. She won't cross your boundaries." Exhausted, Martin reluctantly agreed. He reopened the door. Vicky stood frozen, eyes wide. "Come in," he muttered. "Rules: clean only the kitchen, bathroom, and living area. Do not touch my bedroom. Do not touch anything personal. Understood?" She nodded, avoiding his gaze, and began working with quiet efficiency. Over the next weeks, Martin remained adrift, unshaved, drinking cheap whiskey, staring at the river. Vicky came twice weekly, moving like a ghost. He'd catch her stealing glances at him. One day while dusting, she accidentally knocked over a small frame tucked behind a book. It was Martin's wedding photo, him smiling beside a radiant Tiana. Vicky quickly righted it, hand trembling. One cold night, Martin heard muffled sobs from the kitchen. Peeking through the door, he saw Vicky huddled by the sink, whispering desperately into her phone. "Please, just a little more time. I'll have it next week. Please don't tell Mama." She ended the call, burying her face in her hands. Martin retreated, a knot in his stomach. The next morning, Vicky arrived, eyes red-rimmed. As she scrubbed the floor, Martin watched her tense shoulders. "Vicky," he said roughly, "you're too young for such debt. The agency said you're 18. What about your parents?" She froze. Tears spilled instantly. "They're late, sir. Gone." Martin almost walked away, but the raw pain in her eyes held him. "Sit," he said, pointing to the sofa. "Tell me the real story. You work like someone's holding a knife to your back." Vicky hesitated, then crumpled onto the sofa. The truth spilled out. "Mama Benga, she helps girls like me. Orphans. But it's a lie. She sends us to clean for men, but really, she expects them to want more." She trembled. "I thought when you slammed the door, maybe I was safe. But you let me in, and you never touched me." She stared at her hands. "Other men, they don't ask. Mama tells them they paid, tells them they can take. I give Mama 70% of my wages just so she won't force me onto worse jobs. If I run, she finds us, hurts the others, maybe kills us. She doesn't joke." Martin sat stunned, his bitterness eclipsed by horror. The cruelty was staggering. Silence hung thick with shared pain. Then Vicky whispered, "And you, sir? You sit in the dark. You look at that wedding picture, and you bleed." For the first time since the altar, Martin's icy shell cracked. This girl, trapped in hell, saw his wound. He spoke of trust shattered, love turned to poison, the weight that drove him to this riverbank. His voice was raw, stripped bare. They sat on the worn sofa, the betrayed billionaire and the trafficked orphan. No solutions, no promises. Just two shattered souls seeing each other's pain. In that quiet, a flicker of relief sparked, a momentary break in the crushing loneliness. Martin felt seen. Vicky felt heard. Over the following days, Martin and Vicky fell into a quiet rhythm. While she cleaned, they talked. Vicky's wisdom felt ancient, forged in survival streets, not classrooms. She spoke of hunger nights, of learning to read by street lamp glow, of recognizing predators by their footsteps. Martin, in turn, shared fragments of his past. The skyscrapers bearing his company's name, the street vendor who'd fed him when he was a broken turn, "My street mother," he called her. And finally, Tiana. At her name, his voice would snag like cloth on a nail. She was sunlight to me. Until she wasn't. One misty morning over tea, Vicky eyed his overgrown hair. "You look like a storm-tossed sailor, sir. Need a trim." To her surprise, Martin agreed. At the rustic barbershop, she waited outside, smiling as the barber sheared away his shaggy past. Afterward, walking by the river, Martin paused. "Vicky, I'm returning to the city next week. To rebuild what I left." Her smile vanished. She stared at the rushing water, shoulders tensing. This man, who'd paid Mama Benga double her debt to ensure her safety, who'd never once leered or demanded, was leaving. Panic coiled in her throat. Without him, the vultures would circle again. Mama's clients, the debt sharks, the cold room she rented. "Please, sir," she whispered, stopping him on the path. "Take me with you. I'll cook, clean, stay invisible. Just don't leave me here." Her blue eyes held pure terror. Martin studied her, the tremble in her hands, the scars on her wrists peeking under her sleeves. "Not yet, Vicky," he said gently. "But I swear on my life, I'll send for you once I've secured things. First, how much does that which still claim you owe?" They found Mama in her stuffy parlor, fanning herself with a ledger. She smirked at Vicky. "Back so soon? Or has the Oga tired of why?" "Name the final number," Martin cut in, voice icy. Mama's eyes gleamed. 3 million naira. For breach of contract. A blatant lie. Martin didn't flinch. He transferred the sum from his phone, watching Mama's smirk twist into shock as the alert chimed. Her documents. Now. As Mama grudgingly handed over Vicky's forged ID and contract, two younger girls, barely teens, peeked from a back room. One mouthed "Go" to Vicky, the other wiped tears. "Your own better pass," the braver one whispered. "No be for street we day." Outside, Vicky crumpled, sobbing into Martin's coat. "They're trapped, like I was. I'll help them," he vowed. "But you first. Pack your things." At dawn, they stood at the dusty bus station turned airport. Vicky clutched a single bag, all she owned. As Martin's flight boarded, she gripped his hand. "Thank you," she breathed, "for seeing me. Not just a body to use." Then, courage flashing in her eyes. "Sir, find Tiana. Hear her story. Behind every bad act is a wound. And you." She touched his chest. "You still love her. I see it when you say her name." Martin froze. The truth of her words hit him like river current, swift and undeniable. He pulled her into a brief, fierce hug. "Stay safe. I will send for you." As he walked toward the plane, Vicky's final words echoed. "Listen to her heart, sir. Not just your pain." For the first time since the betrayal, Martin wondered if forgiveness wasn't weakness, but the bravest thing he'd ever do. Months after returning, Martin's world remained hollow despite David's welcome and his mother's relieved hugs. David mentioned Tiana only once. After the blogs destroyed her, she vanished. No one's seen her since. Martin told himself not to care, but Vicky's words echoed. Hear her story. One torrential afternoon, Martin's driver navigated a flooded market road. Through the rain-streaked window, a figure caught Martin's eye. A woman hunched under a torn umbrella, desperately arranging wilted vegetables on a wooden cart. Her light skin, once luminous, was weathered and darkened by sun. Her clothes hung loose on a frame grown thin. "Tiana." Martin's breath hitched. "Stop the car." He stepped into the downpour. Tiana didn't see him until his shadow fell over her cart. When she looked up, recognition flashed, then terror. She stumbled backward, slipping in the mud. "Martin? No, please." Before she could flee, she collapsed to her knees, rainwater mixing with tears on her face. A crowd gathered, murmuring as the disgraced billionaire stood over the gold digger, reduced to nothing. "Get up," Martin said, his voice thick. He offered his hand. She flinched as if struck. Ignoring the onlookers, he guided her into the car's warmth. She trembled violently, soaked and shivering. He draped his coat over her shoulders, a small kindness that made her cry harder. Back at their mansion, now cold and empty, Martin led her to the kitchen. He warmed soup silently while she sat frozen at the table. When he placed the bowl before her, she devoured it like someone starved for weeks. After she bathed and rested, they faced each other in the dim parlor. Tiana's voice was a broken whisper. "I know you hate me, but let me explain. Not to be forgiven. Just so you know it wasn't all a lie." She inhaled sharply, fists clenched in her lap. "At 16, Stan, my stepfather, She gagged on the words. "He came into my room. Forced himself on me. I got pregnant." Martin's face paled. "My son, Leo, he's 14. Born with a hole in his heart." She pulled a creased photo from her pocket, a frail boy with her eyes. "Surgeries cost millions. Mama Brenda said my only talent was my face, my body. She made me join her business. Rich men, hotels." She wiped her face violently. "I hated every touch. But Leo's oxygen tank, his medicine. When I met you, I thought God answered my prayers. I did love you, Martin. But I was trapped. If I told you about Leo, about Stan, you'd think I was trash. Or worse." Martin stared at the wall, jaw tight. The pieces clicked, her secrecy, her mother's greed, the desperation in her eyes he'd misread as vanity. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and raw. "Tiana, your pain is real. What happened to you?" He shook his head. "No child should endure that. But hear me clearly, suffering doesn't justify betrayal. You had choices. You could have come to me. You could have trusted the man who vowed to cherish you." He knelt before her, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Selling yourself to pay bills? Letting your mother pimp you? That wasn't courage, it was surrender. Some wounds run so deep they twist us, make us hurt others to survive. But Leo needed his mother alive, not just physically, but in spirit. What good is a healed body if his mother's soul is poisoned by shame?" Tiana sobbed, crumbling forward until her forehead touched his knees. "I'm sorry. I was so scared." Martin didn't embrace her. The wound was too fresh, the betrayal too deep. But he placed a hand on her head, a fragile bridge between rage and mercy. "We'll get Leo the best doctors. Tonight. But us." He sighed heavily. "Some choices break things forever. Tiana, you didn't just lie to me. You broke the man who loved you. That can't be fixed with a sorry." As thunder rattled the windows, Two shattered people faced a painful truth. Even love can't always glue back what betrayal has shattered. Martin moved swiftly, his influence cutting through bureaucratic sludge. Within 72 hours, Stan was arrested at a seedy bar, hands cuffed behind him as police recited charges: statutory rape of a minor, continuous sexual assault, extortion. Tiana watched from Martin's car, Leo's thin hand clutching hers. As Stan was shoved into a patrol car, Leo whispered, "He can't hurt us anymore, Mama?" For the first time in 14 years, Tiana breathed freely. Mama Benga's agency was raided at dawn. Officers found ledger books detailing payments for underage girls and 3 terrified teens locked in a back room. As she screamed curses, her beaded head wrap snagged on the doorframe, a pitiful end for a predator. The girls, Ada, Chioma, and Blessing, were brought to a safe house Martin funded. Social workers assessed them. Therapists began untangling their trauma. Ada, the boldest, hugged Vicky. "You were right. Good men exist." Vicky arrived by private plane, her eyes wide as city lights glittered below. Martin met her at the tarmac, holding adoption papers. "Welcome home, daughter." He enrolled her in an elite boarding school. When she touched her crisp uniform, she wept. "My mother, she dreamed I'd wear this." Tiana and Leo moved into a sunlit apartment near the hospital. Martin covered Leo's transplant. Surgeons flew in from Germany. Brenda came, hollow-eyed, clutching Tiana. "I believed Stan over you. Let greed blind me. Can you forgive this foolish old woman?" Tiana held her, sobs shaking both. Forgiveness would take years, but the door cracked open. 1 year later, Martin hosted a quiet gathering. Vicky recited a poem about resilience, her voice steady in her new school blazer. Leo blew out candles on a happy 15th birthday and first transplant anniversary cake, his cheeks rosy. Tiana played piano, a haunting melody she'd written in therapy, titled Scars That Sing. As dusk fell, Martin stood alone on the terrace. David joined him. "You didn't get the fairy tale, brother. But look at this, you built a kingdom of second chances." Martin gazed at the scene. Vicky teaching Leo chess. Tiana smiling as Brenda braided her hair. Ada video calling from university. He hadn't found romantic love. But in the laughter echoing through his house, once a tomb of betrayal, he'd forged something deeper, legacy. "Love isn't just something you feel, David," Martin said softly. "It's something you do. Every day. For people the world threw away." Inside, voices rose in a spontaneous hymn. Musical note, "Now thank we all our God, with hearts and hands and voices." Musical note. Martin bowed his head, not in prayer, but in gratitude. His heart, once shattered into bitter shards, now beat as an anchor, holding others above the waves. Vicky slipped her hand into his. "Papa." Leo asked if we can adopt a rescue dog. Martin laughed, the sound warm and whole. "Tell him yes." The N. Sometimes healing isn't about finding love, it's about becoming it. Subscribe for more stories of redemption. Real characters. Real pain. Real hope.